Wednesday, shaping the way we teach English. Webinar course, shaping the way we teach English. Webinar Wednesday.
Hello! Welcome everyone to Shaping the Way We Teach English, Webinar Course 13, brought to you by the American English team. My name is Heather Benucci, also known as Moderator Heather, and I'm excited to introduce today's webinar. First, I'd like to say welcome back to all of our teachers who have joined us in webinars before, and give a big welcome to all of the teachers who are joining us for the first time. All right, here you can see the schedule for Course 13. We really have a lot of great topics to look forward to, and we hope to see you for more sessions. Okay, quick quiz. Can any of our experienced webinar participants out there answer this question? How can you participate in the webinars? During the webinar, you're going to see Moderator Curtis and me in the chat box to give some helping hands, but we also rely on our webinar community to help each other as well. During the webinars, you're going to hear but not see the presenters, and the way for you to participate, as I see many of you mentioning in the chat box, is by using the chat box. This is where you can ask questions or make comments related to today's topic. Of course, not every question will be answered during the session, as there's often hundreds of teachers participating. However, there is another place to ask questions, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes. Your presenters today may also ask you questions in the form of polls. These multiple choice questions will appear on the screen for you to answer. And some people may experience technical problems. Unfortunately, we can't fix individual technical issues, but we will let you know if we have a global technical problem. If you do lose sound, a great way to follow along is with the caption pod you can see at the bottom of the screen. Webinar courses consist of 6 webinars, and during the course, webinars take place every other Wednesday. Participants who attend at least 4 out of the 6 webinars will receive an e-certificate from the Regional English Language Office or the local U.S. Embassy. To ensure you are eligible to receive those e-certificates, we're going to ask you to submit your attendance information at the very end of the webinar. We promise we will let you know when. Please don't submit this information before we request it, or it won't be recorded. For individuals, meaning you're participating on your own computer by yourself, we'll just need your email address. For viewing hosts, meaning a group of teachers watching the webinar together in the same physical room, we need only the viewing host's email address and the number of participants. Okay, the answer to the question from earlier. Many of you are familiar with our Ning site. But if you haven't registered yet, please do join the site. It's a way to continue the discussions about each webinar topic, to interact with your colleagues from around the world, and to get access to additional teaching resources. How many of you out there have already participated in the discussion related to today's topic? You can raise your hand by clicking on the icon that looks like a little man in the upper center part of your screen. All right, I see some hands up. I'm glad to see people actively participating. Also on the Ning, we post pre-webinar resources and questions before each session, and afterwards we post the recordings, PowerPoints, and other materials. And finally, we encourage you to visit our website, americanenglish.state.gov, where we have a wide range of resources available for teachers and learners of English. American English is home of Activate, Games for Learning American English, which you are going to learn more about today. In today's webinar, we're going to explore ways to incorporate games into the English language classroom. using resources from a recent Department of State publication, as I said, called Activate, Games for Learning American English. These interactive games encourage students to use English in fun and authentic ways that are relevant to their daily lives and communication needs. And last but not least, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Jenny Hodson and Kevin McCoy. Kevin and Jenny are both part of the American English team, and this pair worked together to develop Activate, Games for Learning American English, because they both believe that everybody loves to have fun, even while learning. Jenny is currently a materials writer and was previously a teacher in Togo, Costa Rica, Spain, Malta, Poland, and Washington, D.C. Kevin is a regional English language officer in Washington, D.C. His favorite part of teaching is creating games, songs, webinars, and just being funny, and I think you'll see he's very good at being funny. We're happy to have you both with us today, so welcome, Jenny and Kevin.
For that great introduction, although now I feel obligated to be sort of funny today. Hey, I already made Jenny laugh. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening, if it's evening where you're from. All you webinar fans from around the world. Today it's time to activate, 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 activate. Games for Learning American English. I'm Kevin McCoy.
And I'm Jenny Hodgson.
And we'll be your guides today on the adventure of learning how to use the games in our set of games called Activate, which, by the way, is available for free at a great website called American English.
There's one other thing that we want you to know about us. You might have heard this already, but we love fun. So get ready. We hope you're going to have a lot of fun with us here today. So we hope that some of you have joined the previous webinar that was in 2013. This is where we introduced one part of Activate, Games for Learning American English, the board game part. It's okay if you weren't able to join. You can access this webinar recording on our website. You'll see the link there, and that'll help you guide you on how to use these board games in your classroom.
At that time, we also did a video training in the same webinar on Picture This. You see these cards. You'll probably remember them. One side has pictures and the other has discussion questions.
These are also downloadable on our website.
Absolutely. As are today's materials. We're going to introduce two more games.
We'll be talking about Guess What and
Word Bricks. Now, when we set out to create Activate, we wanted a set of games that was easy to use for teachers, that was fun, because we love fun.
We love fun.
I'm not even sure who loves fun more, Jenny or I. We often have this argument, and we haven't decided it yet. But suffice to say, we both love fun. We also wanted games that were easy to use, that you could take into virtually any classroom setting and put the students in the center. Allow them to spend a lot of time on those games practicing English. And I think we got a poll about this because in order to spend a lot of time on the task, we need to play in groups.
Yeah, so not only, it's great to play games in class that are fun, but it's even better to have students play games in groups because that means more people are participating at the same time. So that is one of the key elements of Activate, to have students not only playing games and have fun, but in groups and have the teacher away from the center of the classroom.
It looks like most of our teachers out there in webinar land are already using group work.
That's great.
That is great, because that's where students get the most practice.
Absolutely. And we'd love to hear from the 13% or so that isn't doing that yet, and if you have any questions about how you can do that, we're here to help.
I think after today's webinar, you're going to be ready to try some groups
I think so
and
too.
activate games. Because we put students in groups, it allows them to get a lot of practice time because many people can speak or listen at the same time. The Activate game set has hundreds of variations. There's 4 principal games that you'll be introduced to, but there's hundreds of variations. And we think they can work for all levels, from very beginning students to advanced and even native speakers like us.
Especially native speakers like us. You can find Kevin and I often playing these games in our office.
And I think what makes Activate unique is that it's a complete resource right now. So you could go to the website and download everything you need to use it in the classroom. But it's also a starter kit.
What does that mean, a starter kit?
It means that the games are meant to be models. We provide you with a certain amount of games, but you need more. And part of our training today is going to show you how to add and to supplement these and to create more games.
Great.
That's our philosophy behind this. So Jenny, question for you now.
All right.
I know my answer, but I'd like to get yours. Who can play Activate games? Who is it good for, and where can they play the games?
All right. Well, I think we've sort of answered this, but I wanted to bring up a point that a lot of times when teachers especially initially see these games or any games, they think, oh, these are for kids. What can I use with my students? You might see in the image, it's a very bright colored board game, so again, it may appear more attractive to children, but as we mentioned, these games are really meant for all levels, all ages, pretty much anyone that wants to play it anywhere.
Okay, well that's a good answer, and I've already provided my answer. But first, let's get your opinions on whether you enjoy playing games.
Yeah, we asked this question because, as we mentioned, sometimes the thing I hear from teachers is, oh, games, games are for children. What about for adults? And what I say is, I enjoy playing games in my free time, but also in my professional life. So if I'm doing an activity that's very interactive or a part of a presentation or even a meeting, I really appreciate when people, the leader or the teacher, make it more interactive and fun for me to experience. So,
well, it looks like most people enjoy playing games.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised, obviously. The game industry alone is $1 billion industry, so we know that people around the world are enjoying playing games.
Yeah, and we hope today to convince you that it's also a great learning tool. A game is a great learning tool. So here's my answer for who is Activate for and where can you play. I made this word cloud, and as you see, I think it's good for families to play at home, students, of course, for teachers, at libraries, English clubs. So basically my answer is all levels can play the games. As you'll see, they are adjustable, and you can play them just about anywhere.
I see you have travelers on here.
Yep, I just drove across the United States, and in a box behind the driver's seat, I had picture this cards and guess what cards so we could play while we were driving.
A road trip game. That's a great idea. Kevin often travels not only on long distance, but pretty much anywhere he goes with games with him at all times, so he's always ready to play.
Yeah, we have a word for that. It's called nerd.
I think it's called fun.
Okay, fun.
Okay, so we've talked about how anyone, anywhere can play Activate games for learning American English games. But I know you guys are teachers, so the important thing is how do we play these games in the classroom? So first things first, what is Guess What? So Guess What is a set of cards. We currently have 48 cards that are free and downloadable. On each Guess What card, there is a topic at the top. So you'll see on these 3 cards, at the zoo, in the sky, and at the beach. So those are the 3 topics. Under each topic, you'll see 6 vocabulary words that are related to the topic. So we have developed 8 different games that you can play, guess what? And each game has variations. But I think there are probably a lot more games that haven't even been developed yet that you will think of that you can use or do with these cards. So if you do think of a new game, please do share it with us. All right, so that's what a Guess What card is. So this is how we would introduce it into our classes. It's always great to model any new activity. So first what we do is just show your students a Guess What card. Show them what it is. You can either hold it up, or if your class is very large, then you can write an example of a Guess What card on the blackboard so everybody can see.
So you can see the 2 elements here. On the top you have the topic sentence and then the words beneath it.
Next thing you would do to introduce this to your students is do a demonstration. So select a card. Next, show students that when you are holding the card, they should not allow other students to see the card. This is a very important element because this makes it more game-like. So students should keep their card a secret. Kevin, do you have any ideas of how students can make sure their card isn't seen by their partners?
Just hold it carefully or put a piece of paper behind it, a binder. But the game's much more fun when they don't know the answers.
Exactly. Okay, so once your card is protected, tell the entire class, the topic on the card. So that phrase at the top of each card.
Mm-hmm.
Then just let the students know that you will be describing different words and they should guess the word. Okay, so describe the first word. When one student guesses correctly, move on to the next word. So since you're doing a demonstration, I recommend that you actually go through the whole card, use all 6 words to show students how the game works. So that's step 1. I think we should give it a try. What do you think, Kevin?
Way cool. Let's give it a try.
Okay, so first, the topic on our card is, drum roll please, things that are round.
Things that are round.
So I am the teacher, Kevin is the student.
You're going to describe and then I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
I will describe words, and all of them will be things that are round.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm going to close my eyes so that I cannot see the words.
People are already guessing. Wait till I I guess that's good. You can start brainstorming. But I'm going to describe specific words. All right? So the first one. This is something that is in the sky at night.
So, at night, it's probably the moon.
Moon. Good. Okay.
Or flying saucer.
The next one. This is something that is on the wall that tells the time.
That would be a clock.
Perfect. Okay, this is the planet that we live on.
Planet Earth.
All right, this is a fruit. It's also, the color is the same name as the fruit.
The color is the same name.
It has a lot of vitamin C.
Orange.
These guys are a lot faster than you, Kevin.
Well, I like to enjoy my games.
This is something that you use to play almost any sport, such as tennis or soccer.
Ball.
Ball, exactly. And this is the thing that is on the top of your body that contains your brain.
Oh, my head.
Wow.
My round head.
You did a great job, and also all of the teachers did a great job. So, and your head is not totally round. But close enough.
That's very kind of you.
Okay, so as you see, that was a game that we used a lot of language. It went pretty quickly. Even though Kevin and I are native speakers, it was actually an enjoyable game for us, and this is something that this type of game is something that a lot of people do use just in their free time, even in their native language. But the point here is really for your students to practice fluency. So we know that it wouldn't go exactly like that. We know it might be more challenging. It'll take them a little while to find the words to describe these. But that's the point, is to really focus on the fluency.
That's called practice.
That is definitely. Okay, so after the teacher has done a demonstration, as we just did, students should get into groups of 3 to 5. So anywhere in that range is fine. Any group of 3, 4, or 5, it doesn't matter. That way you don't have to worry about if you have an even or odd number. Just tell students, get into groups of 3, 4, or 5, and you're ready. Students do not need pens or pencils or papers or even desks.
Those get in the way.
Yeah, sometimes I think students often feel like they have to write, but that sort of slows down the game and doesn't make it as game-like or really focus on fluency. So encourage students to put down their pen, stand up. The only thing that they'll need is their guess what cards and a way to make sure that their other group members cannot see. So we have a teaching tip for you, and this is actually something I learned from you, Kevin, so thank you, but I've used it many times since I learned this from you, and it's worked brilliantly. I think for us teachers, sometimes we sort of dread putting students in groups because we think, oh, it's going to take forever, they're going to get distracted, they're going to start talking or move slowly. And that's true. A lot of times that happens and we feel like we lose precious class time. But one thing you can do that encourages students to move quickly is time them. So say, okay, students, you have 30 seconds to get into groups, go. And if you feel like they're moving slowly, you can even start counting down to let them know how much time they have. But even better is after they get the hang of this. So when you are putting students into groups, even when it's not related to this game, you can still time them. And once they get the hang of it, try to get them to start beating their time. So say, okay, the last couple times I've given you 30 seconds. Now I want you to try to do it in 29 seconds or less, or 27 seconds. And each time they try to beat their previous score. So that way you're saving time, they're moving quickly, they're actually having a little bit of fun because even just getting into groups has now become a little bit of a competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so give it a try. And you can, if you see on the screen, this is not a watch, this is actually my phone. Kevin, as I mentioned, he is a walking game machine. He always has dice and game pieces and games and even a timer with him. I, on the other hand, am not quite as organized, so I often rely on just something that I already have, like my phone, and I use that as my timer. Okay, so another thing you'll have to do as the teacher is select cards for your game that are both relevant for your students and appropriate for their level. So if you look at the cards, the first thing that will help you indicate sort of the level of card or the level of difficulty are these plus signs. Any idea what they mean? So you'll see 1 plus sign on some cards and 2 plus signs on other cards. Any idea what they could indicate? Kevin, do you have an idea?
Let me look. Well, the ones with 2 pluses look a little bit more complex, advanced.
Exactly. And yes, I see some of our participants are saying the same thing, that it's the level of difficulty. So 1 plus means it's a little bit easier, 2 pluses a little bit more difficult. So if your students are lower level, you may want to just start by using only the cards that have 1 plus. But we haven't and we can't do all the work for you. We don't know your individual students. So even though the level might be appropriate, what is relevant for them might be different. For example, in the most recent class that I used these, I decided to remove the card at the movie theater. This is not because it necessarily is too hard, but it's somewhere where there weren't any movie theaters in town. So I was sure that most students had never been to a movie theater, so this wouldn't be a very interesting card for them. So you can look at some of the others. The same thing, in your context, if gyms aren't popular or students don't go to the airport very often, that might not work. Things that break, although some of the vocabulary words aren't that difficult, the concept of this card is a little bit abstract. So that could also be more difficult depending on their level. In my most recent class, I did decide to use outdoor activities, even though it was a more advanced card, but I removed skiing because I was in a very warm place where people didn't ski. So this is just some things to think about when you're selecting your cards.
This is also something you can monitor while they're playing, right?
Of course.
If one card is difficult, you can just sort of take it away.
Yeah, and that's exactly actually how I did it. I just, on the spot sort of looked through quickly and saw some that I thought would work, but of course sometimes they didn't, and then it would occur to me why it wasn't working. So that's okay too. All right, so after you've selected the cards, the next thing you'll want to do is make sure that one group demonstrates to the rest of the class. So you have demonstrated, and that's definitely a good model, but we won't be sure that students understand until we have another group demonstrate. So in this case, you might want to select a stronger student to be your model and have the whole group stand up. Have the rest of the class watch them. So you'll select one student in that group to be the describer and the other 3 to guess, and everyone else watch. Have them go through a whole example to ensure that the students understand. And now for the best part. Students play. And your role while students are playing is to distribute cards. So have a plan for that. Circulate to make sure students understand what they're doing, help them along, and rotate cards. It's important to know how cards are going to move from one group to another. So go ahead.
I want to ask, so how many cards total do you need for a whole classroom to play this game?
So if I had 20 groups, I could potentially do this game with just 20 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So each group only really needs one card at a time. Sometimes I actually think it's better if they only have one card because they focus on that.
I agree.
And then, aren't looking ahead or skipping because they don't know they spend a little more time. And then as the teacher, you can just rotate them. You can either tell the students, okay, when you finish, pass your card clockwise, or maybe if students are working at different times, then just have students raise their hand and you can swap out cards. So it's pretty easy. You don't need a lot. You may want to have a few extra to be ready, but in general, you don't need too many cards. So here's just a quick review of the steps for getting students ready to play Guess What. And you will be able to find this PowerPoint on our Ning website so that you can review all of these rules and steps and resources. Okay, so here comes the even more fun part of Activate, and we talked about before our philosophy, which is that not only is this a resource, but a starter kit. So we're going to be talking about creating our own Guess What cards. Kevin, I have a few questions for you because I think you're an expert. You've created a lot of Guess What cards. So first, do you need special paper to create Guess What cards?
No, you can create cards on virtually anything. Post-it notes, pieces of cardboard that you find, or regular pieces of paper like that.
Yeah. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not quite as organized as Kevin, so I often just rip pieces of notebook paper out of students' notebooks or tell them to do it, and there you go. There's your piece of card. Next question, do you think it's important that each card have 6 vocabulary words under the topic?
No, I think that number is completely arbitrary, that you could have any number. And you could have different numbers. Some could have 4 and some could have 6.
Right, exactly. I totally agree. Do the cards, or can the cards include the students' L1, their native or first language?
So this is going to be rather controversial. In this picture on the left, you can see perhaps that those words are written in English and then they have Russian language translation. I think if your entire class speaks a common language, it's good to have a translation because then they always know the meaning of the word on the card. They're not showing it to anyone else. The game is actually about describing skills and speaking more than vocabulary memorization, right?
Exactly. So as Kevin mentioned, it's going to be controversial, and there isn't really a right answer. It's about how you think it should be done. So if you think it'll help your students through, maybe translate some of the words. Maybe translate all of the words. Maybe use pictures. Maybe you think no translation at all. That's up to you.
Yeah. Pictures are better. Okay. I just think students need to know the words on the card for the game to progress without interruption.
Okay. So create your own cards. So something else that I saw earlier was that teachers are worried about their curriculum, what they have to get done, and that you often don't even have time to get through your curriculum. How am I going to have time to get through additional games? Yes, of course, that's an issue, and we don't want these cards to work separately outside of your curriculum. We want them to be a part of what your students are studying. So this slide has pictures from a textbook that I know a lot of teachers use. You see the first picture is Chapter 6, Exercise 1. This chapter is on transportation in the U.S. And then another Chapter 3 is on the family. So this is what we're studying in class, and this is what we can make our Guess What cards about. So you could just make one card, and you could list 8 different types of transportation that they're studying, or you could even start to have students categorize. So maybe you have 2 cards, one that says personal transportation and one that is public transportation. So in addition to studying these different vocabulary words, students can also start to sort of categorize them to help them learn. All right. So who should create these cards? Sorry, 1 second. We're just having a moment of technical difficulty. Just give me 1 second.
We had a question come in from Lebanon. It says, students speak loudly. What happens if it's too loud in the class? And this person suggested, can we train students to speak more quietly? I think so. If the activity is fun, you can practice speaking quietly, or you can move outside. I think there's a number of solutions to that problem.
Yeah, I've often had students do this game in a whisper.
Ooh, really?
Yeah, and they actually think it's kind of funny.
Huh.
Okay, so sorry about that, but yes, we do encourage you to base your cards on your curriculum, not in isolation. So back to my question, who should create the cards? Kevin, what do you think?
Well, whenever you can get students to do some of your work, it's a good thing.
I agree. Once again, you are probably more prepared than I am, so I like the students to do my work. And students, I have learned, are great card makers. This is a class I was recently in, and at first we just tried out the game for the first time, but then I wanted students to share some of the things that they were interested in. So they were able to pick their own topics and write words that they knew that were related to them. Of course, you can also do this thinking about your curriculum. So when you are learning new vocabulary in class, every time, maybe as a sort of review exercise, have students create a guess what card about the vocabulary they just learned. So what do you think about how long it takes to create a guess what card?
Wow, look at those.
So these are some cards that I just created, and you would not believe how long it took me. I mean, these are some masterpieces here.
I'd say it took you about 2 or 3 minutes to create 4 cards.
I would say you're right. Probably less than 30 seconds per card. Do you think these teachers believe us? What do you guys think? Do you think it's pretty easy? I saw someone say fast and easy. Yes, it depends.
Oh, here's someone says creating materials is time consuming. Well, let's try that right now and show you how I don't think it is time consuming.
Some materials are, but I think guess what cards are not. So we are going to ask you first for a topic. So we want a topic for a new guess what card.
So we just want the subject, that one word or 2 words, whatever,
Any
on the top of the card. And we're relying on you for a good topic.
Okay, I see transportation. Well, we just saw that, so let's try a different one. Things that crawl.
Things that
love that.
Thanks
That's
for Fernando Escobar.
All right, so ready? Everyone share some ideas for things that crawl. Snakes. Do snakes crawl? I'm not sure.
Sure.
Okay,
Doesn't matter if they
animals.
go on the card. Babies, good.
Babies.
Ants.
My son.
Crocodiles. Time. Very good,
Oh,
moderator. Oh, moderator Curtis strikes
Spider-Man.
again.
Spider. Sure. Lizards. Cars. How about in traffic?
Okay.
Okay,
Spider-Man. Okay,
so
good.
that was less than a minute. See how fast we created that? So we think it's pretty easy to create guess what cards.
And if your class creates them, you can collect them all and use them with the next class who doesn't know the answers.
Exactly. So have your students not only create cards for themselves, but for your future classes. All right. So talking about creating cards with students, there's a couple different ways. Like I said, you can base it on your curriculum. You can also brainstorm topics. So start by just having students call out different topics that they want to make cards about. So here you can see some examples: countries, adjectives for describing people, email, football. And then have them separate them into groups and have them make their own cards using these topics. So we're going to actually try this as a group right now. We want you guys to have a try.
Yay, right now, live. We're going to create materials for the classroom in minutes.
All right.
So the first thing we need are topics, right?
Yep.
How many topics do we need, Jenny?
We're going to choose 6. So start putting your topics into the chat box.
Okay, we want topics.
Occupations.
Occupations.
Or jobs, right?
Furniture from the okay. See, we're not afraid to put anything down.
Okay. Next topic.
We had furniture.
Okay.
You think, oh, that's not going to make a good card. It will. Colors. Interesting. Clothes. Now, for your topic, you don't need to limit yourself to one word, right? You can say things that make squeaking sounds. That would be advanced, right? Mammals, that's a good one. Things that are sweet, nice, Leticia. Endangered animals, oh, right. Delicious food. Daily activities. These are all good topics. Ice cream flavors. Wow. Okay, we've got wonderful topics. I think that's probably enough for us right now.
So now you can start filling in vocabulary based on the topics. So let's do tools and one more daily routine.
So now you'll be typing. So we need examples of things that are sweet. Okay, great. Cakes, honey. Occupations. Okay, now you've got it. Types of furniture. Okay, file cabinet, chair, bedside table. Great. See how easy it is? This is not time consuming. Let's see, daily routines. School, zoo. Wow, I wish I went to the zoo every day. Take a shower. Good. Running. Okay, well, we've made some pretty impressive cards here. And we just did 6 of them ourselves, and it took about 1 or 2 minutes.
I like that. Check Twitter as part of your daily routine. Sadly, it is, probably. Probably some people's hourly routine.
I have never checked Twitter.
I haven't either, but I think we are behind the times.
I think we probably will.
All right, so thank you so much. I think, I hope that we've just proved to you that making Guess What cards is really easy, and I think it will even be easy for some of your students.
You see how you could do this on the board with your students and then hand them out little pieces of paper and have them do
Exactly.
cards themselves.
Exactly. And just please do keep in mind that it is great to tie it to your curriculum. We know you're busy teachers. We know you have a lot to get through. But this will actually really help your students learn the vocabulary necessary for their exams. So, okay, so let's go back to the presentation. And we've been really focusing on just one of the Guess What games. But there's actually a lot of other things you can do with Guess What cards. The first one is mime the words. So I think probably a lot of you can guess what that activity entails. Kevin, what do you think? That's not mime.
Oh, no, sorry. That's sound effects. I didn't mean to scare you. So,
Well, you wanted to make sure the audience knew what you were doing. Oh, look, you did such a good job. They guessed the lion.
I'm miming right now, but the audience can't see.
All right, so, but hey, that's a different variation you can include is sound effects. So one thing you can do is mime the words. Have one student act out the card while the others are guessing. What kind of words are best sort of suited for mime? What do you think?
Actions like run, dance, sleep, drink.
Yeah, I think action verbs tend to work well with miming. And also, I guess animals, too, is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is draw to describe. So I think also a lot of you can probably guess what that entails. Kevin, what do you think?
Instead of describing an elephant, you could try to draw one.
Exactly. And what sort of words are easier to draw?
Concrete things like a ball.
Yeah, like objects, nouns,
flower,
I think is probably easier than a lot of abstract concepts. So I actually like to combine these to give students a choice. So when it's their turn, they can decide to mime, draw, or describe. That way sometimes students who are shy at first might try miming or drawing, but then, gain more confidence as they become more comfortable with the game. So especially for lower level learners, I think that's a good option. Another game is called Yes, No, Maybe. So in this case, rather than having the describer just describe the word and students guess, the describer still shares the topic, but then the guessers actually ask yes-no questions about each word until they can guess. So we'll give you an example. So the topic is on the wall, Kevin. Mm-hmm. Now you're going to ask me yes-no questions to try to guess the word that I'm thinking of or have on the card.
Okay. Does it hang on the wall?
Yes, it does.
Is it heavy, like heavier than paper?
Yes, it is heavier than
Okay, is there something
paper.
printed on it?
Yes.
Does it give us information?
Yes.
Does it give us information about what is happening during the day, or
yes.
month, or year?
Yes.
Okay, is it a calendar?
It is a calendar. Good. So that was just an example of, rather than me describing calendar, Kevin asked me yes-no questions to guess calendar. So this is a great way to just change up the game. Also specifically when you are studying yes-no questions, that might be a good game to try out. And a fourth game you could do with Guess What cards is called you don't say. So this game is different because the describer does not tell the guessers the topic. So I would not tell Kevin at the beach. Instead, my goal is to get Kevin to guess the topic, and I would describe the topic, but I cannot use the words on the card. So the words on the card make it easy because they're very related to the topic. So those are the words that I can't use. So I would say, Kevin, this is a place that you go in the summer often when it's warm, to relax, to read, to listen to the ocean.
The park.
To swim.
Oh, to listen to the ocean.
You wear something that you swim in. You often...
The beach.
Yes, the beach.
Okay.
At the beach. So it's a little bit challenging because you have to pay attention to the words, to not say them, and get the remainder of the group to guess the topic. So just another little variation, might be for a more advanced level, but a lot of fun.
It's probably good to spend several days or a couple of weeks on one game, the first game, and then start exploring the variations.
Exactly, yeah. And this is actually a game that me and my family play a lot. So it's not just for the classroom. It can be a lot of fun with your friends. So just one final reminder about this Guess What game is that you can download this on our website. The cards are downloadable. The instructions are downloadable on americanenglish.state.gov. You will find them there. So we hope that you use them.
Mm-hmm. You will be downloading a piece of paper, right, that you have to print, and then cut them into card-sized pieces. And you can laminate the paper to make them last forever if you like. Now we're going to move on to the fourth and final game in the Activate set. And this is called Word Bricks. Word bricks look like this. Once again, you can print up this piece of paper and then cut along the dotted lines so that you have individual pieces of paper or bricks that look like this. You can actually print so that they're two-sided with one word on each side. You don't have to print two-sided, but it makes the game sort of fun. So what do you do with word bricks? Well, we have about 120 words, and you can plop them down on a desk like this. What happens when people do that?
I think people's natural tendency is somehow organize things that are just plopped down. So they might try to categorize them, or maybe even, what do we think? What does the audience think?
Something like sentence generator, make
yeah.
sentences. You build, that's right, the bricks. We use bricks to build structures. We use these to build sentences. So people will automatically start doing that. And you can come up with a sentence like this. I am a schoolgirl.
I love when you say that sentence, Kevin.
I kind of do too. So let's try together. Let's see what happens. If I put these on our virtual desk, now naturally you can't use your hands to put the words in order, which is a disadvantage, but I'm going to ask you if you can create a full and complete sentence of correct English. You can type it in the chat box. Jenny, you look for a sentence too.
Okay, well, the sentence that I am excited to share is I am not old.
I don't eat. We've got two. That's good.
It is
Jenny
old.
says,
I am not an old girl.
I am not an old girl. Okay. Daniel from Mexico. Hey, is that our Daniel from Mexico?
Building a map. School is bad. I am cold. These are great. See how fast you can make sentences with just some words on the desk.
Yeah.
I'm a girl. He was cold. I ate some of those. Those are mine.
I made my own sentence. The first one I happened to see was, it is an old country. Okay, so you see that's simple. So making sentences is one way we use this. Now you'll notice in that last picture we only had words, but here's what activates word bricks so useful and so much fun. We add a wild card, which means it can represent any word, and we add the letter S, or in this case ES, but on the other side of that there will be the letter S. So what does that do? You'll see here that he sleeps. So now we've changed sleep into sleeps in that wild card green building. So I would ask students, well, what does the wild card stand for here? And Jenny, you're the student.
I would say he sleeps in that awesome green building.
Okay, that awesome green building. Good. What? Dirty. Okay.
So an adjective, right?
Whatever the students want. And if that's a complete sentence, I say, yes, good job.
And I think this is a good example of how you can study specific grammar points. So if you're working on adjectives or even adjective order, maybe you show the sentence, but then you move the wild card to after green, and then you might need different adjectives. So you can do very specific grammar points with these word bricks.
Okay, so there are some special word bricks when you download these. You'll see the S and wildcard. We also have some suffixes like ly and ing that you can add to words. But by far, the most important are wildcard and magic S. So much so that every group should have at least one wildcard and at least one magic S when they play. Just to demonstrate how useful wildcard is, let's look at these word bricks right here. These word bricks have been joined by a tiger. Is that okay?
Oh, so is the tiger, does it represent tiger?
Yeah, it will just represent the word tiger. Can anyone build a sentence? We've only got 1, 2, 3. We have 7 word bricks and the word tiger.
Can tiger eat? Well, we don't have an S, so
cat we
eats in building. So far I haven't seen a correct sentence yet. A tiger bought, we only have one A, so it's,
Yeah, so it's really hard. But now let's look. How many sentences can you make here? Well, you see that thing down in the corner that's orange? We're going to use that as a wild card. So you can move that to represent any word. Now you have a wild card and an S. So with a wild card, any word, and an S, what complete sentences can you make?
I think we have a lot more.
A tiger in a building, yeah, but that's not, it's great, but it's not a sentence. Anyone can.
A tiger eats in a valley. A tiger eats cats in a valley.
Wow, great.
Yeah, exactly. So now we have the S that will help us with our verbs.
A cat bought a valley. Uh-huh.
And the magic, or the wild card.
The tiger eats in a valley. Okay, great. So you see how much easier it is when we give one wild card and the letter S. Because especially with magic S, this is what it does for us. We can make verbs go for any conjugation, first person, second person, or third person. We can make nouns plural. We can even change some words, like take the word end. If we put an S in front of it, it could become the word send.
Wow, that's pretty creative.
Yeah.
And I bet some students would think of that on their own, even if you didn't tell them.
That's what I like, is students really explore with the language here. Thanks, Moderator Curtis, for showing us there. I also like Magic S because it really helps us focus the microscope on grammar corrections. And we'll see how very shortly. So here's how we could correct students. Here's a typical sentence we might get from students. This is boring room. So what do we do in this case? I mean, we do want to encourage students to do correct sentences because this is like a form of writing. our goal is sentence building.
Yeah, I like this game because I think a lot of our games focus on fluency, which I think is really important, but this game also gives us an opportunity to focus on accuracy. But I don't really like to just give students the correct answer. Do you, Kevin?
No.
What do you do? Great
solution right here. Melita says, this room is boring, which is a perfect sentence. So you could rearrange the order.
Ooh, and I didn't even think of that.
Isn't that great?
See, that's why it's better to...
The thing is, we don't want to tell the students what is correct. We want the students to find out. So I usually just place my finger, something's missing. I would never tell the students what. They have to do it themselves. They can rearrange the whole sentence to correct it, but I'm not going to give them the answer. So, in this case, they say, oh, something's missing, and then they think, of course, I'm always forgetting the article. This is a boring room, and they fix it themselves.
Yeah, so again, really a great way to sort of focus in on especially those errors that students are often making, which I've noticed a lot is forgetting articles and also forgetting the third person S. So it really highlights it.
So if you play with your students, and I hope you will very soon, you're going to see sentences like this. He sleep in that green building. What do? Do you tell your students they're wrong? You don't have to say a word. Just point with your finger to where the problem is, and they might correct it with their magic S. He sleeps in that green room.
Yeah.
Of course, they could write he is sleeping, or they could change it to he drank in that green.
Exactly.
There are many possible corrections, so let them figure out the solution.
Yeah, and you know, I first had thought maybe it would be better to have a card that had sleep and then sleek on the other side. But I think the magic S is better because it really, again, reminds students when they should be using that magic S.
Trust me, if you point, students will go, uh-oh, something's wrong there. They'll look at their magic S and they'll say, ah, that's it.
Exactly.
They get used to it. They really start focusing on their magic S. Okay, so far we've just been making sentences, but we haven't really brought any game idea to this. So let's do that now. And this is where WordBricks really takes off in the classroom. We add points.
I love points. I'm obsessed with points. I crave points.
Okay, Jenny, I'm going to give you 5 points for doing this webinar.
Thank you.
So one of the easiest ways is to give students a point for each brick in a complete sentence. Is that a complete sentence?
Yes, it is.
And it would be worth 3 points. But every group's going to have a wild card. If you had a wild card with that sentence, where would you put it, Jenny?
I would put it at the end, and I would say, don't answer that, Kevin.
Okay, and that would be worth 4 points.
Yeah, wild cards are definitely worth points.
So, what we have is we want to bring students into teams and have them work together, give them points, and tabulate a score. Here's an actual photo of WordBricks that I did in Jordan with some 13-year-old girls who had very low level of English. And yet, how many total points did they get?
Oh my gosh. One group got 249 points in one setting?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Keep in mind that that's only for correct sentences. So they had to find out what was wrong with the sentence and make them.
So, I mean, just imagining this, they probably did a lot of self-error correction and really learned a lot if they made that many sentences.
That's a lot of sentences, yeah. And someone asked before, how long do we play these games? And I think it really depends. I actually let people play for an hour.
Wow.
Can you believe it?
Well, and I also think on the flip side, just as I mentioned that I love points, I also really love to be timed. So I don't know if any of you have ever played this game, but I have a game similar to this on my phone where just in English, my native language, I try to make words as quickly as possible with letters or make sentences. And it's really addicting. And it's not even that interesting if you think about it. I'm just spelling things like cat, but all of a sudden I'm addicted because I'm being timed and I'm being given a score. So it just adds that element of fun.
I think students could play WordBricks for 10 minutes, but you could also play for much longer.
Absolutely.
And you'll see here, I am keeping score for 3 different groups, the doves, the butterflies, and the 4 cats. So each time they make a correct sentence, they call me over, I check the sentence, and when it's correct, I give them points for that. You'll also see that sometimes the sentences are silly, like just above my round head there is the sentence, you will find your silver head. And that was made up by some of the students there.
I just see a comment here. So in Azerbaijan, they have classes for 45 minutes. How can I use so much of the time? And again, we rely on you guys to figure out what makes sense in your classes. So whether you have 5 minutes at the end of class for students to try to make sentences with their new vocabulary words, or you have a period of time where you can spend an hour, that's totally up to you. There's no right amount of time.
I think an hour is on the long side of this. Whenever I do any activity, if one group loses interest, then I bring the entire activity to an end. The only reason I let them play for an hour is because each group was totally intent and never stopped working.
Exactly. And maybe, for an hour it might be better in a camp or an English club or something like that. So
mine was a camp.
It totally depends on what you're doing and how much time you have. And one thing that I am thinking about is, what about if I have 100 students, so that could be like 25 groups. How am I going to keep score for all those groups?
Well, you can enlist the students to keep tabs of their own score. Of course, you'll want to correct to make sure the sentences are correct.
Okay.
But students can help. Students can run up to the board and write their own. But I do think it's important to make the scorecard visible so that there's more competition and students can see how the other groups are doing.
Definitely.
All right, so that's how we can make this into a game with competition. It makes it very fast and very fun. But when you print our word bricks, there's only 120. It would be great to have a lot more. And it's so easy. In fact, word bricks is designed in such a way that you need to add more because we don't have very many nouns. The reason we didn't supply very many nouns was so that you would add your own. Subjects that are of interest to you and personal and about your local lifestyle.
Exactly. We want this to be relevant to your classroom.
So now, you can see some of our official word bricks there at the top, but you can see some things have been added, right? People have written new words. Anything else that's new there?
I have to see a picture. Is it okay to use pictures?
The Eiffel Tower, why not? I found that lying around at the French embassy.
That's so weird.
It was Embassy Day last weekend. And so there was a picture of the Eiffel Tower, and I put it in my collection of word bricks. So now you can make a sentence, the Eiffel Tower is that green building. Which is not correct, but it's a good sentence.
Wait, but are we allowed to make funny sentences?
I like funny sentences.
Okay.
If they are well built.
Grammatically correct, but they can be nonsensical.
Yeah, I think so. So now look, there's Jenny. Now I've added some more.
Wow.
We've got a zebra there. That will just represent the word zebra. We've got that little object in the top, the orange object. That's going to be our wild card. I like the wild card to be something very visible that people can find all the time.
Yeah, I bet people love to use the wild card, so it's good to make it easily visible.
I've got my name there.
I like that idea, too. The students can make sentences about themselves, about their friends in the group, maybe even about other people in class or the teacher.
Yeah, or famous singers or whatever.
Yeah.
And you can see that there's a magic S. That's clearly marked because magic S is so important.
Okay, so you circled the S just to draw more attention to it.
Yes.
Got it.
So often you see that those are not pieces of tuna on the top. Those are just...
Those aren't meat.
No, it's just clay, and that orange thing is called a jack, and then there's a yellow flower. And it's much easier for me to distribute these to groups in the audience when I say, here are your wild cards. And I just can give objects and make sure that each group gets one.
Exactly.
So, but it's not sushi. Those just represent
a piece of clay.
That's right. Okay. And
ooh, that looks like dinner.
yeah, but they're not cooked. So I also generally carry a bag of several hundreds of beans. And these can be added as well.
Yeah, I think beans are relatively inexpensive. I think you can buy a bag of beans like this for about $1 here.
Yeah.
And you'd have over 100 beans.
Yeah, actually a bag has about 300.
Oh, wow.
And even better if you can find nice round flat stones. You can see I've written on those flat stones. So we can add them all together.
That makes it so much easier if you don't have access to a printer or don't, have a lot of paper, or you want to use something that you already have to recycle.
Well, these last forever, or for a long time. The beans don't. The beans wear out after a while, I must say. But if you have students add to your collection, then it is not labor intensive. You can use stones, plastic, cardboard, little pictures, little objects. Keep your collection. Honestly, you can have 500 or 1,000 easy.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about having a place in the class where you keep your word bricks, and every time students learn a new word, someone is responsible for adding it to the collection? So
Absolutely.
That way you have an ongoing collection that's being built by the students.
Yeah, you're working from a new chapter in your textbook. You get the vocabulary, write them on pieces of paper or stones, add them to your word bricks. That way you're incorporating the curriculum for when the administrator walks by and accuses you of having too much fun.
So Carla says, how to be sure that every student wrote a different word? Well,
good question, Carlos. Jenny?
I actually think you're probably going to need a lot of the same word because students are playing in groups. And if you want all the students to be able to use, for example, the word refuse here, then you're going to need a lot of bricks that say refuse. So yeah. I don't think it's a problem if students are writing the same word.
Each group is going to have a different collection of words. You want to have a lot of copies. The word the, T-H-E, you want about 30 or 40 of them.
Right.
To make sure that every group has 2 or 3.
Woohoo! Does that mean us? Let's play?
Yeah, it does. Here we can see some teachers in Indonesia. Do they look like they're having fun playing word bricks?
Well, some of them look really serious because I think they're pretty into it.
Yeah, they are.
But they do look like they're having fun.
Right. Okay, so let's imagine that you, World Webinar people, this is your virtual desk, and we've just put this on your desk. Now, I've kind of arranged it with, in the right-hand side, things, and verbs in the upper left. But also notice you've got your magic S, and you've got your wild card, and you have that jack. That orange object also represents a wild card. So you have 2 wild cards. What we're going to ask you is to type sentences in, but we're going to compete with each other. So you're going to see appearing now on your screen several chat boxes. If your first name begins from A to F, you'll type in there. So look for your name.
So if my name is Jenny, then I'm going to use the second box to type in sentences that I find using these word bricks on our screen. So we don't need to know your name.
Yep.
We just need you to type sentences that you can find using the word bricks on the screen.
There we go. Renata from Mexico has it. The zebra ate the clouds. Great sentence.
So you guys are building sentences using these cards. Okay, I ate some cold food.
Uh-huh.
I ate food. That's a good one. We don't need to know your name, just sentences that you can find using these word bricks. Okay, let's see. She was cold. I might eat there. I was cold. Those are good. The kids' ride was poems.
Kevin rides a zebra.
She ate cold food.
Okay,
The
so are you...
children gave food to the zebra.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks bad thoughts.
She might ride clouds.
No.
Wow, that's very 1960s. I love it. That's worth 4 points. The school was cold.
So remember, you want to be making
4 points for Melik.
sentences using the word bricks you see on the screen.
There might be a zebra at school. Perfect sentence. 7 points for Emmanuel.
Okay. These are a lot of great sentences, so you can see how quickly students would be able to just pick this game up and start playing.
Mm-hmm.
Great job.
Okay, good job, everyone. Of course, what we don't get here is the tactile sensation of actually touching and moving the objects and showing the sentences. And students really enjoy that.
And this group was so fast we weren't able to keep score.
No. So, class management tips. How do we use all these little tiny pieces in a classroom of 50, 60 students? Easy. Play in teams. One of the things you need before you deliver your word bricks is a clear playing surface. Whether it's playing on a binder or a desk, clear a space, forget the pens and paper. We do not need anything, just the word bricks. Always make sure that the team has one very visual wild card, or two, and a magic S. More wild cards will help younger learners. If people start slowing down, take some word bricks from their table and move it to the next table. Just keep rotating.
Oh, that's a good point. What about do you spend a lot of time organizing piles of word bricks ahead of time?
No, I don't. I don't do
it. I thought you were so organized.
No, I'm not. The only thing, I just pile word bricks on the desk. The only thing I make sure that's organized is that everybody has wild cards and magic S. Okay,
so you just sort of start throwing them around,
That's
and
right.
Then how do you adjust? What if one group has like 10 nouns and no verbs?
Then I will give them verbs. Or if I see that they don't have the, I'll bring over a the. Or if people say, we don't have the word school, and I say, here, write it on this piece of paper.
Okay, so you sort of evaluate as you go. And I think that's useful for students because if they all of a sudden see, oh, I have 10 nouns, that alerts them, oh, I can't make a sentence with only nouns. And that's sort of just reinforcing basic sentence building skills.
Yeah. As Irina says from Croatia, wildcards can help weaker students. They can also help advanced students make more complex sentences.
And I see a question, can we use rubrics for evaluating students' oral speech or use of vocabulary and grammar? When do we evaluate? That's up to you. If you just want to do this as an activity with students and you sort of circulate, and as Kevin demonstrated earlier, how you can help students by just showing them where there's errors, that's one way. If this is going to be some sort of assessment, then you could try to build in some sort of rubric where you're checking each sentence, etc. But I think in general, you don't necessarily need to fully or officially evaluate or use a rubric for this.
I see this as practice for later evaluations. If you have tests in your course or standardized testing, this is going to help them later.
Right.
Playing with this language, exploring it. The risk of assessing too much is that students will lose the idea of the game and the enjoyment of the game, and then they won't play as much.
Exactly.
How many word bricks do you need per group? A minimum of about 20, but the more the better.
Okay, so but again, you don't count to make sure each group has the same amount.
No, they have about the same.
Okay.
This group has about 30, and there's words on both sides, but they have wild cards, so it's easy for them to make sentences.
Yeah, so I What I noticed actually before is we had that slide with only, I think, 7 or 8, and it was actually a little bit challenging, but I also thought that was good too, to get students to really dig deep and try to make sentences with just a few words. So I think it could go either way.
Yeah. Well, actually, there are other games that you can play with word bricks. Right now, the one that we played was Sentence Race, where students make as many sentences as they can. Once they finish one sentence, they start again from scratch and do another one, and they accumulate points. That's Sentence Race. But there are other games, and some you might give only 20 bricks to each group, and they would have to, say, sort them into parts of speech. That would be Sorting Race.
Okay.
So there are many different kinds of games.
So we are just a little bit limited on time today, so we're not going to walk through all of these games, but you will be able to download this PowerPoint on the Ning, and you can go back and refer to it to learn more about these different games.
And please regularly visit American English, because we tend to roll out new directions for games regularly, and so we will have more in the future. This is just to let you know that there are many, many games you can do with word bricks. What I love about Activate is that it's great for teachers too. And I think one of the most important things that teachers learn is that they don't have to be center stage. It's actually the students playing that's the most important thing.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, I mean, these games can be used for almost any age, any level, but I also really like to use this Activate set with teachers, because I really think it reinforces, as Kevin said, you know, sort of a student-centered classroom. It also brings the idea of developing your own materials based on a curriculum, thinking about critical thinking. So a lot of these questions that we use in the games are very open-ended, which means that there's not a right answer. And that's something new sometimes for students. They always want to know the right answer. But we want them to know that the right answer is just what they think. So those are a lot of different skills that Activate really promotes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just a review. Today we talked about Guess What, and you can download it on our website.
I talked about word bricks.
Also downloadable.
Yep.
And we mentioned earlier that we had a webinar in the past that covered board games, another part of Activate. And there are 11 downloadable board games. As you can see here, we'll just show you some of them. But there is a webinar that you can watch on how to use them in the classroom. And there's instructions on how to use them, but they're a lot of fun. I hope that some of you have already played them.
Yeah, if you have played them, raise your hand if you've used these in your classroom.
Ooh, we already have some Activate fans. Great.
That is great. Looks like Mexico, Brazil. So we have all these board games.
This one looks to me like it's sort of highlighting a specific grammar point, the have you ever one. So the games can, you know, vary between both topics and specific grammar points.
As I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, one of the most important elements of Activate is the do-it-yourself option. That's what DIY means. When I mentioned a starter kit, Activate is about doing it yourself. So we give you those board games online that you can download, but you can also download this template and provide your own content and make your own board games. It's really easy to do.
Yes, you might think, oh, making my own board game is going to take a lot of time, but I've seen teachers make them in under 5 minutes. So again, we want these games to be tied to your curriculum. If you're, for example, studying the second conditional, you could easily make a game very quickly. The game could be if I had ... And then the squares could say $1 million of husband or wife, a pet,
A big yellow suitcase.
A big yellow suitcase. So I think pretty quickly you could fill in the slots, and there you go. You have a game that's focusing on your grammar point that students can get lots of fluency practice.
Do it yourself.
DIY.
And you'll see, here's a teacher, Dwita from Indonesia, who went to a workshop on our Activate games and was inspired and went home. And look at these beautiful games that she's making using stamps herself.
Yeah, why use the template when you can get creative?
This is way more beautiful than our template. And here's one that my wife made on a pizza box.
A pizza box. That's recycling.
So simple and creative.
I love it.
But you know, if you can't do things beautifully, you can do them like I do. There's one that I made which is not beautiful, but it works. The content is there.
Yeah, we don't necessarily need to get hung up on making them beautiful, but just functional.
We've even seen some people creating their own Picture This cards. Remember, Picture This has pictures on one side of the card, and on the other, discussion questions. Well, look what we got from our fellow and her teachers in Burundi.
Wow, they drew their own pictures.
They need their own Picture This cards.
I love these because they made them relevant for things that they will talk about. Cards might not be relevant for the entire world, but they're going to be more interesting for the teachers in Burundi because these are things they see every day. So it's a great idea to make them really personal.
And on the back of these, they have questions about those objects. So remember, do it yourself. That's what Activate is all about. If you would like to watch this webinar again, or indeed our other webinars on Activate, they're available at the American English YouTube channel, or indeed at the American English website under Shaping the Way We Teach English webinars.
We'll be collecting email addresses in just a few minutes, and we'll let you know how. So don't submit them at this time. They will not be counted. So we just have one other thing that we'd like to ask you to do if you are up for a challenge. We have a Guess What template on the Ning site, so the shapingenglish.ning.com, and you can download it and share with us new Guess What cards that you create. We will compile them and then share with the whole group, so we have even more cards to play with. Also,
yeah, we'd also love to get photographs from you. Look at these kids in South Africa playing Picture This. Yeah, they're playing Picture This, I believe, an Activate game. So if you have any photos from your students, either of activity materials they make or playing Activate, please send them to us at americanenglish@state.gov, and we'll put together a fabulous slideshow, and you'll probably become famous.
Yeah, so we already have a lot of friends of Activate. First and foremost, Activate's first friend is Rick Rosenberg. He's currently the Regional English Language Officer in Brazil, but when Activate was developed, he was our fearless leader and is the reason Activate is here today. So thank you, friend Rick.
He's so closely associated with Activate, he's often called Ricktivate. So thanks, Rick.
We also have friends in Brazil that like to play board games, friends in Indonesia that play word bricks, friends in Mexico playing Picture This and word bricks, our English language fellow that we mentioned in Burundi.
Jody.
Hi, Jody. She loves Activate so much, she calls herself an Activate ambassador and spends lots of time helping teachers use Activate.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're hoping that you too will become an Activate activist.
Activate activist. I love that. We can create our own group. All right, so Activate in Indonesia, board games in Burundi.
English teachers designing their own board games based on Activate.
Is that a pizza box?
Yes, it is a pizza box. I collect them everywhere because they make great board games. That's New Delhi, India.
Picture This in South Africa, and look how engaged those two students are.
I know, look at the one at the top of the
warms
picture.
My heart to see students so engaged.
Yeah. And those are beans, but it's the same idea as word bricks, right? They're playing longest sentence there and doing a great job in Jordan.
That looks like a really long sentence. Impressive. Board games in Togo, and these are actually teachers learning about Activate. And you can see that there isn't a table under the game that they're playing. They're using coins for dice, and they don't need a lot of space, so it's very easy to play almost anywhere. And finally, we see students in Senegal playing Guess What.
I love this picture. You can't see them holding the Guess What cards, but that's kind of what's great because they're not using any pens or papers or anything.
Yeah, I put this picture specifically for you because I thought you would like the fact that they are standing up.
I do like the fact that they are standing up.
And they're all, look at how intensely engaged they are listening and trying to guess. So, I'm sad to say that it's time to go.
Bye-bye, everyone. We hope that you are now Activate activists, and you're going to be playing these games in your country. Don't be afraid of the chaos in the classroom. Your students will be completely absorbed in the games. Write to us and tell us how you're doing with Activate.
Thanks so much. See you on the Ning.
Goodbye, everyone, and we'll see you on the Ning for